tragic case of Brianna Moore, a cry for justice. Welcome, true crime enthusiasts. Today we delve into a chilling and deeply emotional case that has shocked not only Tampa, but the entire nation. Brianna Moore, a bright 19-year-old college student with a seemingly unremarkable life, now faces charges of first-degree murder. Accusations of suffocating her newborn baby in the solitude of a Tampa college dormitory have left her community shaken and full of questions. This story is not just about a crime. It's a profound tale of societal pressures, denial, and potential failures in mental health support systems. As we unfold Brianna's story, you'll find yourself grappling with the complexities of guilt, intent, and the nagging question, could this tragedy have been prevented? Let's dive into the case of Brianna Moore, a young woman at the center of an unsettling intersection of crime, psychology, and justice. Brianna Moore was a typical college student, or so it seemed. At 19 years old, she was enrolled at the University of Tampa, pursuing an education many would consider a path to success. Yet beneath her seemingly ordinary life was a secret that would ultimately shatter hers and others' futures. On a fateful day last April, Brianna reportedly gave birth alone in her dormitory, a young woman left to confront the overwhelming reality of childbirth without any help or preparation. What happened next has become the foundation of a trial that has gripped the Hillsborough County courtroom. Prosecutors allege that Brianna concealed her pregnancy from friends, family, and peers. They further argue that she, in an act of desperation or intent, suffocated the infant shortly after giving birth. This tragic act set the stage for legal battles, public outrage, and introspection into the pressures faced by young adults navigating unplanned pregnancies. The prosecution paints a grim picture. They argue that Brianna's actions were premeditated, concealing the pregnancy, giving birth in secret, and failing to seek medical assistance all point, in their view, to an intentional act rather than an impulsive tragedy. During court proceedings, the prosecutor's voice was clear and unrelenting. Brianna's denial of her pregnancy wasn't just a coping mechanism, it was an effort to sidestep responsibility. And they argue her failure to seek help after giving birth shows that she intended to keep the baby's birth and death hidden. In their narrative, Brianna's actions robbed an innocent life of any chance to flourish. With such a serious charge as first-degree murder on the table, their case hinges on proving calculation, intent, and awareness. But Brianna's defense team tells a different story, a deeply human one that urges understanding rather than condemnation. They argue that Brianna is not a criminal who calculated her actions, but a young woman overwhelmed by circumstances beyond her control. Defense attorneys highlight that such tragedies often occur among young people who face tremendous societal pressures. Denial of pregnancy is not uncommon in cases of extreme stress or fear, and Brianna, they argue, is no exception. She should not be presumed guilty based solely on her reaction to unfathomable circumstances. Moreover, they stress that Brianna is not a flight risk. Instead of labeling her as a villain, they urge the court to see the vulnerability and mental health struggles of a teenager who made irreversible decisions under extreme pressure. Their battle is to humanize Brianna, emphasizing that there's more to this case than meets the eye. For true crime enthusiasts, the location itself, Brianna's college dormitory, is a stunning detail. College campuses are, in many ways, symbolic of opportunity, learning, and personal growth. The unfolding of such a dark chapter in a space meant to nurture promising young adults only deepens the emotional pull of this story. What led Brianna to this point? Was it fear of judgment, abandonment, or some mix of psychological and societal pressures? These are the unanswered questions gripping the Tampa community as they await more details during the trial set for this July. Last Thursday, Brianna appeared in court, her face expressionless, her demeanor stoic. She was surrounded by defense attorneys working tirelessly to save her from the prospect of life in prison. The prosecutors, by contrast, presented their case with precision, pointing to evidence that they believe proves premeditation. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as both sides prepared for what will undoubtedly be a trial that draws national attention, filled with legal fireworks and moral dilemmas. At the heart of this case lies an important psychological angle: denial of pregnancy. This phenomenon, while rare, is not unheard of. It's possible that Brianna convinced herself that the pregnancy wasn't real, allowing her to suppress fears and avoid dealing with the consequences of her situation. But denial alone does not excuse tragedy. Forensic psychologists may be called upon during the trial to analyze Brianna's mental state and provide insight into her actions. How could someone walk such a path of secrecy and eventual tragedy without breaking down? There are no simple answers here. The case forces us to examine how young adults, particularly women, are supported or not supported while navigating unexpected crises. This leads us to an essential societal question. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Imagine a world where Brianna felt she could ask for help without judgment. Would the life of her infant have been spared? Colleges and universities often promote resources for mental health and crisis support, but are they accessible and reliable enough for incidents like this? Cases like Brianna's shed light on the gaps in our societal safety nets and the stigma tied to unplanned pregnancies. As true crime enthusiasts fascinated by the darkest corners of humanity, we must also ask, how can society do better to prevent these heartbreaking crimes? The Tampa community has responded with an outpouring of shock and sadness. Emotions range from outrage to sympathy, with many divided on their opinions of Brianna. Is she a cold-hearted criminal, or is she the victim of an unspeakable situation? The media has latched on to the sensational details of this case: an infant's tragic death in a college dormitory, the isolation of a young mother, and the question of intent versus consequence. As the media continues to shape public perception, opinions about Brianna remain polarizing and dynamic. The legal weight of a first-degree murder charge is immense. Brianna's fate rests on whether the jury finds her guilty of deliberate intent. The defense will undoubtedly fight to reveal the nuance in her actions, arguing for a lesser charge or even acquittal. Morally, this case goes beyond guilt or innocence. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Can intent exist without understanding? Do societal pressures and mental health struggles mitigate accountability? What punishment, if any, fits this heartbreaking crime? For those of you captivated by true crime, this case offers a multi-layered story that intertwines human emotion, psychology, and raw legal drama. From the tragic setting of a college dorm to the complex arguments in court, the Brianna Moore case is as gut-wrenching as it is fascinating. The dual perspective of prosecution and defense creates a compelling courtroom struggle, making the July trial a date to anticipate. But beyond the court proceedings, there lies an even more gripping question. How could this happen, and what can we learn from it? As this story unfolds, it raises critical questions for both the legal system and society at large. Could preemptive support have changed the outcome for Brianna and her child? To what extent should external pressures influence legal accountability? What role should psychological evaluations play in cases like this? These are questions the court, the public, and you as viewers must grapple with as the trial progresses. As we've excavated the layers of Brianna Moore's story, it's clear that this case is about so much more than a crime. It's a tragic intersection of youth, fear, and societal failure. What happens in the courtroom in July may bring closure to the legal aspects of this case, but the moral and psychological impact of this story will echo far beyond Hillsborough County. So, I leave you with this. Where does accountability begin, and how can we as a society better support our young adults to avoid such heartbreak in the future? Join the conversation in the comments below, and if this case has moved or intrigued you, consider subscribing for updates as the trial unfolds. Together, let's seek justice, empathy, and understanding in the wake of unimaginable tragedy.